Hi, thank you for listening in to another episode of Where the Fortune Is. And I tell you what, I'm beside myself. I am really looking forward to having a conversation with Donna St. Louis. I actually heard Donna on another podcast, and it was actually Brian Rollo's podcast. And as soon as I heard it, I immediately just was locked in. And I thought I need to talk to Donna and have her on the show best I can. So I reached out to Donna on LinkedIn. And quick background on Donna: she's actually an international speaker, an author, and the CEO of highprofitzone.com. And that alone just was fascinating. But also what captivated me too is 19 years old. Donna, it's even on her website as well. So she was homeless, and then from there became a founder and CEO of a $250 million tech consultancy company, and then just has incredible drive, just tenacious, just a great energy to continue to succeed. And I'm just thrilled to have you on the show. So thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, I was looking through and I loved it in there, like the bio. You said that you had somebody who really gave you kind of two key points when you were 19. Was that a mentor, or was that somebody that just helped you out along the way? How'd that happen?
So there was there were several people when I was 19. So there was the guidance counselor who made it crystal clear that I was going to be, a drug addict, a mom of 5 kids, 3 of whom would either be in jail or dead. What I loved is the part where he told me I was going to be a drug addict and that I would be in and out of jail. I was like, never even had a drink.
What?
But I'm already down in coke. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
But those statistics, those were statistics, and a lot of people were like, oh, what a monster he was mean. I'm like, he wasn't mean. He had actually invested a significant amount of time and energy along with a lot of other guidance counselors. And here it was, I'm out of high school, I'm 19 years old, I go back to visit, and I'm not doing anything. And he's beyond frustrated that all of that investment was going nowhere. And so he was kind of like, listen, I just need you to either die or get out of Florida because I don't want my tax dollars paying for you.
Wow.
You can't get more honest than that, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the one person I had, and that's how I ended up homeless. I literally got in my car, drove 95 north, and as smart as I am and all this other stuff, I couldn't figure out that you need oil, not just gas in your car. So it broke down, and I ended up literally living not too far from a lake, and like between a lake and a highway in my car. And I stayed there for a while, about 3 or 4 months. And there was a police officer actually that saved me from that existence. I'll tell you something that was kind of funny. He brought to the car. So he came out there. He was the most reddest redneck I'd ever met in my life.
That's
he was the reddest redneck like ever. He made it clear that I was the dumbest person on the planet on a regular basis.
Wow.
His wife would make for me. I didn't know it was a wife. It wasn't him. It was his wife.
Yeah.
She made for me every single day peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and she cut off the crust. 2 things. She never asked if I was gluten intolerant, nor did she care if I had a peanut allergy. Eat it or die. How about that?
Sink or swim.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how they basically fed me every day for a while, for at least a month, probably a little over a month. And then one day he bought a typewriter to me and said, "Okay, stupid." That was my nickname. You need to do a resume. Have you ever done a resume? And I'm like, no, I've never done a resume. And he said, well, you need to do a resume. And then he gave me a resume book, a ream of paper, and a typewriter. And just so we're crystal clear about the typewriter, because you were like, well, how did you plug it in? Yeah, it wasn't that one.
Yeah. That was old school.
Backspace. Yes, there was no backspace. There was no autocorrect. When you press enter, it made the ding sound. Your hand was enter. That was enter. About 278 sheets in, I finally got a resume that didn't have any mistakes on it.
Wow.
I didn't know how to type. I had no idea how to type. So It's like this, just hunting and pecking and, oh, I missed the space. Now I got to do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting my first job working at People's Telephone Company, which was, they used to put cell phones in cars.
Yeah.
And this was back before we all had, our 3 devices on our hip.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
people would rent those cars, and when they rented those cars, they would get a bill. Generally, these were business travelers, and so they had that Monday through Thursday kind of hookup. So my third mentor was this guy in IT who agreed to mentor me only if I never spoke to him and I never asked any questions.
What? How does that happen?
He was not nice. Okay.
Yeah. I'm starting to question your mentors.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Everyone thinks that your mentors have to be these people who are nice and kind and love you and hug you and cuddle you and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Sometimes so many people are asked so many times for help from people who really don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of this barrier sometimes that you have to get through to prove that you actually want the mentorship. And so many people give up that they never get the mentorship they really could benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And so he told me to go get this one book. It was called Excel for Professionals. That book cost as much as my check was for a week. So
Wow.
It was a very, very, very expensive book for me. And I went and got this book, and and he said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to read something. Then you're going to do whatever it said to do. Then you're going to read the next part, and you're going to do what it said to do. And you're going to do that until you get to the end of the book. I'll see you in a year. That was my mentoring. I ended up writing a program because I didn't know I was programming, but I ended up writing a program, wrote some code that would automatically send everyone their bills if they were already in our system, so they would never call me again. It was awesome.
I bet.
My customers were A through M. I only had to worry about them. I got no calls. I had a massive solitaire score. Like I was rocking solitaire and Tri-Beat. Oh my God, and Minesweeper, killing it.
Yeah.
And when the CEO found out, he moved me into IT.
Oh wow.
Where that guy now had to mentor me.
Oh, so now he had to talk to you again?
Now he had to talk to me. Now it was like a requirement, So from there, I really became an IT geek. Like I could run Cat5 cable through somebody's entire building. I could wire a building and make it, and now I can make it wireless as well. I became a network engineer on all the networks. And so that was kind of the thing. I became this deep geek.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So when you're going through that, did you still feel like there were some challenges, or you feel like you just had a breakthrough moment and you think, hey, I'm hitting the ground running now. This is it.
Oh my God. No, breakthroughs take a very long time. Have you ever seen a chicken come out of an egg? It's not like they just like, hey, boom, I'm here. What's up? That's not how it happens. No, they have to tap, kick. There's a lot of times when I was going through that book that I'm going, I don't understand this. And there's no Google. And the guy who's supposed to help me is like, well, just go read the chapter again. And he goes, and I'm like, but I read the beginning of the chapter, then go read the one before that because you missed something.
Yeah.
And so it became one of those things where I kind of realized that one of the most important things to do was, just because you get stuck, it doesn't mean you stay stuck. It means that you might have to take 2 steps backward and then go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so there wasn't a moment, it wasn't really a breakthrough moment, because at that time there was just this consistent learning, right? And so it really was kind of funny because I went from making like $7 an hour, to selling a company for $250 million. And the differences in my account obviously were different. They were significant. It was significant, but it felt the same. I still felt like the 19-year-old girl figuring things out. I guess it's because I'm constantly curious.
Mm-hmm.
So I always feel like there's something to learn. There's something to get in there and figure out. There's something that other people are struggling with that I can make totally figure outable and put it into a formula anyone could do. It wasn't like I went to, Wharton and went and started a business. I didn't even get my degree until after I retired.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So when you're going through that process with that company, when did you eventually say, hey, you know what, I can branch out and do my own thing? And started you just I know you had a lot of nose to the ground, just some fantastic learning. And that's a testament to you, though, because a lot of people, I feel like, being put in that situation, in that seat, in your shoes, would either fold and quit because they weren't getting coddled, if you will. And you were like, hey, you know what? I'm fine. I don't need I don't need a handout. Like, I can do this. You cracked the door a little bit. My foot's in it. I'm going to bust through it, and this is what I'm going to do. So that's a great testament to you. But when to the point you feel like you had to make that transition just to, start your own company?
Right. Well, two things. Number one, I think people think they deserve to be coddled a little bit, and I don't have that belief. First of all, I don't want to be coddled ever. Yeah. Right? It's almost like an insult to my intelligence. Like, oh, poor little you couldn't figure out. Like, okay, that I have a very competitive nature. So when someone does that to me, it's like, oh, so I'm not smart enough to figure this out. Oh, I got you. Yeah. Now I'm mad. Now I'm going to go figure it out anyway. So maybe anger. It's angry. Yeah. So what made us actually, so myself and my business partner never actually set out to start a company. This is going to sound so cliche, and I swear to you, it's really not. But we actually set out to do his project for his for business. So he was getting an MBA. He had already graduated from the Naval Academy. He was getting his MBA, and he wanted to really nail down the seed, what makes a consultancy work. And we kind of figured out there was a DNA for all business, regardless of what it was. All business had the same formula, same DNA, right? So you don't really have to figure it out. You just have to figure out how to plug your stuff into it. And so I kind of said, I was tired of writing I did all his homework. I was tired of writing newspapers. And I said, why don't we just, instead of trying to prove this on paper, do a project and prove it in real life? You and I both work in IT. We're both data people. We both know how to do consulting. We're at the height of a freaking .com boom. Let's just figure it out. Worst case scenario, we'll make some money and you'll be able to pay off your student loans. Like that was like our whole concept. Like, do this project. Let's use this project to pay off student loans. Right? Like that was it. And so what we decided to do was we knew that we could do, there's something called business intelligence. Business intelligence is literally it's statistics and trends that predict the future of business, what's going to happen next, right? Business intelligence is huge in the stock industry, anything that has to do with money. So we were business intelligence geeks. That's what we were. And so we decided we were going to do a business intelligence project, a small one. It would take about 6 months. We do a couple of subject areas. It would cost about $2 to $4 million from a client. We weren't going to make a lot of money off of it, maybe a couple $100,000, pay off a student loan, good to go.
Yeah.
Well, the problem was, so we did go out and we did get a project, and we did start this little business. It was just supposed to last 6 months. The problem is that we bid it for $4 million and we won the bid. And everybody's like, wow, that's amazing. That's your first bid. You won $4 million. Holy crap. Yeah. It was $7 million though in expenses. So we're actually $3 million. It was a word, like we should have taken classes in pricing because our pricing was completely hosed. Yeah. So we had to go get another contract to cover this. We had to go get 2, maybe 3 contracts to cover this $3 million shortfall where he screwed this contract up and then get those other contracts. So now we're out here, 4 contracts. He's still trying to go to school, but I'm like, dude, you're going to have to not go right now. Yeah. What are you doing? And so now it's he and I, and then we got other people in like, look, we really need your help because we kind of screwed this up. And they're going, how can you guys can't do math? And I'm like, no, we can, but we mathed that all wrong. Like we didn't carry the 1. Bad things happen. And so so that's how we actually ended up getting started. And then it was like, well, and he kept going, it seems really easy for you to get these contracts. Maybe you should just go get another one. And so so before you know it, we actually flipped a coin. That's how he became CEO and I became COO. It was literally
on one coin flip. Yeah.
I wanted to do 3 out of 5, and he said, statistically, you're going to win on 3 out of 5 because you're better at statistics than I am. Yeah. And You wouldn't do 3 out of 5 rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
So, so that's actually how the company got started. And then it was one of those things where when we started bringing on people for real, like people started quitting their jobs to come work for us full time. And we're like, wait, now we're responsible for other people's mortgages. Okay, we got to quit messing around and do this seriously. And that's when we got serious about
Oh, wow. That's
it. Yeah, it
exciting.
wasn't the dollar amount. It wasn't the work. It wasn't
Yeah.
the work. It wasn't the dollar amount. It was the employees. When we start getting employees, and it was one thing for them to be doing it like part-time in the evening, weekend, doing a little extra work, making a little extra money. But when they started quitting their job to work for us full-time, all of a sudden, like, that was like, hold on.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're quitting your job? You know?
Yeah.
Now we have to pay your mortgage. They're like, well, yeah, but okay, Jay, we got to get serious. So.
Yeah, I can imagine that level of responsibility all of a sudden just bam being put on your shoulders, because it went from being a project for school to some funding. And wait a minute, this is getting real serious, and a snowball effect. And now you have people quitting their jobs.
Yeah, when people started quitting their jobs, I think for me, and that's something that is serious for me as a CEO, is that I am more concerned with ensuring that the person who is working for me, their salary is covered for a year. And every person that works that is a client of mine, I'm like, well, first of all, if they want to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, you can be an entrepreneur, like full on leave your job once we have a year's worth of money in the bank. And I'm always very clear about these guidelines.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how to make that money, so that way you can do that in the next 6 months, but you have to do that. So that's number one. And then as a CEO of a company, for my own employees, I won't bring anyone on that I don't know that I have a full year's worth of their salary in the bank, period, the end. So if something happens, I know I can cover them for a year. That is a big deal to me. So cash flow, you know, why are so many people struggling right now during the pandemic? Because so many entrepreneurs and employers have forgotten how to negotiate to get cash flow. Cash flow is way more important than credit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And that's great you have that insight. I mean, because to create that culture, because it all starts at the top, and then, you know, as a leader, so have that transition down into everything else. And it just helps you build that $250 million company you can turn on and sell, because without having those, you know, kind of check marks, if you will, along the way, you're not going to be able to do that. Then and not take the severity of it. So, I mean, that's another testament to you and your partner as well, for y'all to do that through that transition.
Kind of crazy about that.
Yeah, I love that. Through that though, I mean, it sounds like definitely a lot of trials and tribulations going through that. Is there ever a particular time or moment that really like it's ingrained in you, and you said this was a pivotal moment and it changed the trajectory right here?
Yeah, absolutely. We were doing all of this work for private companies, and private companies a little harder to get into because it's harder to find the opportunities, right? Not that they don't exist, you just don't know when they exist. So you have to make sure that the timing is absolutely perfect. Knowing when to sell into them is so difficult. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to start doing government contracts. But to do government contracts, even though we were a minority business, getting the minority business certifications, getting the set aside stuff, getting on GSA schedule can take forever. It is not the easiest thing in the world to get on government contracts. So one of the things, I used to work for the government before, you know, in my transition to getting to this point. And so one of the things that that I came up with was, I said, we can de facto get an SBA and get on GSA if we go and buy a company that's already on it.
Wow.
Yeah. We don't have to, we can still let that company do that company, stay as it is, but we own the entity.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We went and found a company that was basically a project management organization on GSA schedule that had the small business and the minority business status, and they could get set aside business as well as they were on GSA schedule. And so once we were able to do that, we were able to use them as a pass through, and that was huge because government contracts are guaranteed.
Yeah.
And so suddenly we were able to get these very large business intelligence contracts all over the country, that we hadn't even thought that other people weren't even tapping into. We literally had no competition on the GSA schedule at all.
Wow. Yeah. That's
That was
great.
a
You
big
found that loophole, kind of like the back door, if you will. Like, hey, it's another thing. Like, you saw an issue or a problem in a way. Okay, how are we going to problem solve this? How are we going to sidestep it in a way, or kind of push through, if you will? And then to do that, that's amazing. So that was the moment where it kind of just changed the path.
Yeah, it changed it. And the reason that path was so critical for us is because when 9/11 happened, you had all of these companies that literally closed their purses, right? So they're not spending anything and they want to pull their contracts. Well, conversely, whenever corporate shuts down, government picks up. Whenever government shuts down, corporate picks up. So we had like this perfect balance. And so we did that right before the whole 9/11 crisis hit. So while all of these people are losing their businesses because 9/11 has shut down so much private stuff, the government was opening its doors and its wallets big time. So we got a significant number of our projects during 9/11. We doubled in size during that time.
Oh, wow. Man, that's incredible to go through that process. When did you feel like it was the right time as you built that up to exit, or is it somebody just came knocking, you go, wow, that sounds really interesting?
Oh no, we knew when to exit. So we are so we are a business intelligence company, which means we actually predict the future of business.
Yeah.
We saw all the things, like we're like, the amount of steel coming out of China into the United States for appliances has gone down significantly over the past 6 months. What's going on? So we saw that trend.
Yeah.
Because if they're not buying appliances, why aren't they buying appliances? Because they're not selling houses. Why aren't they selling houses? So it was one of those things where you just watched it. You watched it start to happen. And then, of course, when the bubble burst, we were already out in 2008. We sold like really right at the beginning, like that first friggin' month of 2008. We were done. We had sold. But we saw it coming before that.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Through that journey too, I mean, I just love the journey, like just the tenacity to going through that and seeing everything. Being a woman, have you ever felt like it was just breaking through that glass ceiling? Do you ever feel like it was just something coming up like,
let me tell you.
Yeah.
Here's the best story ever. And I will tell you, I was just one of those people, like I was nice to everyone, but people kind of always tease me and said, they're like, she's really, really nice. She'll, she's the person that'll hug you and talk to you nice and everything. But if you cross that line, there's these talons and these teeth that come out. My sons describe it as a hider that comes from my head. But anyway, I went into a very large IT company. I'm not going to name their name. Very, very large IT company we're going to do business with. And we're in the executive offices, and I'm the only female. My biggest failure of my company is that I only had 2 female employees. I tried so hard to recruit women, couldn't get them. So it's myself. They just wouldn't apply.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't even get the applicants.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And I looked. I was one of those people like, don't put the people's first name because we want to stay diverse, or give me, initials because we want to stay diverse. We don't want to, color our selection based on whatever.
Yeah.
Even when I said, okay, put on first names, I need to know if there are any women out there. Are there any female? Can I just get all the female applicants?
Yeah.
It was really hard. But one of the things that we did was, so we're in this office, and there is this gentleman that is an executive in this office, and I'm going to be negotiating our contract with this guy. Now, this is a huge contract. It's going to be somewhere around $25 million. So we're already in there, myself, my CEO, and the other 3 people we have with us. And he says hello to the first guy, shakes his hand, hello to the second guy, shakes his hand, gets all the way to my CEO, shakes his hand, gets to me, and then says, so I got a notepad here, pen for you. There's coffee over there if you want to get everyone coffee, and then we'll be ready to go.
What? Wow. Did you walk
But
out or did you say,
no,
no,
my
I am?
CEO went to correct him, and I was like, "Don't you dare!" So I got him coffee. I
Okay.
got him coffee, a nice steaming hot cup of coffee. Now, here's the thing: they also knew that if I walked into a meeting and I was presenting, I was sitting at the head of the table.
Mhm.
Always, that was a thing. And so one of the guys who worked for me liked to tease me and sit at the head of the table and was like, "Yeah, I'm running this meeting, this." I'm like, "Really? You want
Yeah.
to do the presentation?" She's like, "No, not at all." And he would just move. And
Yeah.
so I sat down at the head of the table, and then my CEO said, I don't think you met our COO, Donna. She's going to be the person who's not only doing the presentation, but you're going to have to negotiate with her in regards to this contract if she decides that we take it." And the guy at the other end of the table was just sitting there looking at me like, and I just said, "How's your coffee?"
Yeah.
Every time he went to take a sip, I asked him if he needed more cream, more sugar, or needed me to top it off. Every time.
I love it.
Oh my God. We ended up getting the contract. He was so apologetic. He was like, "I feel like such an idiot."
Yeah.
Like,
Well, you should.
I swear.
Yeah.
I swear.
That sounds like exactly something my wife would do. Just, she would go ahead and she would get the coffee and the same thing. How is it too hot? You need some more
Too
cream,
hot.
no
You
sugar.
need
She
to
would do
top
the
it off.
same thing.
Always with a smile. Need me to top it off. He finally just took the coffee and just pushed it in front of him. Like he was just like, I won't be having coffee today. I'm like, good. Not good for you.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Caffeine causes you to not be as diverse in thought that you need to be.
That's great. So through all that transition, that's just, incredible what y'all have gone through. And then leading up to like what you saw, did you take a little break, try to like, you just, kind of sit back and then say, hey, you know what?
Oh,
We built the company up, we sold it, we have some great times, great stories, or when did you feel like it was time to roll the sleeves back up and get back after it?
30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
Yeah.
That's all I had in me. Let me tell you, I was so bored.
Mm-hmm.
I know the first couple of days, I think myself and my CEO, my partner, we were on the phone like all the time talking about all the things, and we had negotiated to the point where we only had to do consulting calls. So if they called us, we didn't have to go into an office or anything. And so one of the things that was, and we assigned someone else who is our president. He was the person who actually took on the role when the organization sold. And so it was so funny because we were so bored. I was just like, so what do people do when they're home all day? Because it was just like so much waxing and painting and pulling and tugging and coloring that you could do before you start looking really weird. I was like, this is killing me. I was so bored. I didn't want to talk about, in the people who were my age that, their kids were younger, I was 39, my son was 19, right? So their kids are like 9,
Mm-hmm.
so their kids are younger. They want to talk about Barney being a dinosaur. I didn't care. So I was bored. I didn't have anything in common with the people I was around. I had historically been around a lot of guys, so I had pretty much a potty mouth. I insulted everyone. I always felt everyone was way too sensitive. So it was a little difficult for me when I first. So I decided to actually, I didn't even decide it. I got a phone call from one of my clients that said, we really liked what you did in regards to just the entrepreneurial mindset that you drove in people.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be awesome if you could come and do a couple of classes on how to have that entrepreneurial mindset and maybe even some of the tactics and strategies. So I really started doing that like straight out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. It was really cool to be able to like pass that on.
Yeah. Did that lead over to the speaking as well? That transition there?
Yeah.
Is it just?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it happened. Because then it would be great if you could come and open a conference for me. It would be great if you could come and just tell your story. I get that a lot. It would be, and the funny thing is I don't just tell my story. I tell people the lessons that I learned that were pivotal mindset lessons along the way.
Yeah.
that made such a big difference in, because people are like, well, how are you tenacious? How are you this? And
Yeah.
there's just a mindset that goes with it. And so I do a lot of that. I teach, the mindset first, because if you don't have that, and then influence in sales and then marketing and then everything that goes along with entrepreneurship.
Yeah. That's so true. That mindset. I mean, if you had to give like 2 or 3 nuggets of just the right mindset to have, what would you say?
I would say the first one is to get your ego in check. That's the very first one.
That's so true. Yeah.
If you absolutely positively believe that, if you believe that you are right and you are only having a conversation to prove that you're right, then you're not taking a moment to listen.
Mm.
I go in recognizing that I don't know everything, and probably what I know is just from my perspective. And I'm way more interested to understand someone else's perspective rather than convince them to see mine.
Wow.
So that's the first thing. When your ego is checked, you have the humility to put everything that you know aside and then stand up to someone and say, will you help me? This part right here is a little tough for me.
Yeah.
I don't understand something. And it doesn't make you an idiot. It doesn't make you dumb. It doesn't make you stupid. It makes you have the testicular fortitude and ovarian audacity to ask for some assistance.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say the second thing is there are 3 things that you really have to change. It's your playmates, your playground, and your plaything.
Yeah.
A lot of times we are so stuck because we're stuck with the people that we're with. We have this belief that we have to hold on to every human being that we ever meet forever. And I'm really a believer that people are here for a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Wow.
And so sometimes you'll be connected with someone and they are beyond their season, and so they become an anchor, and they literally will drag you down. You're not seeing things the same. You call them and you share something and they want to argue with you about it. And I'm like, dude, it totally wasn't opinion. I was stating facts,
Yeah.
And so when you're getting into too much of that, you kind of have to change your people. You got to change your playmates. You have to change your playground. Sometimes that playground might be as simple as changing where your office is located in your apartment.
Yeah.
If you really like looking out the window, then look out the damn window. It doesn't matter if it's not aesthetically pleasing. Just turn the damn thing and look out there every day.
Yeah.
Maybe you prefer to sit on your porch and work from your porch for the first half of the morning, right? So our playground sometimes has to change. I will live in an Airbnb for 6 months just to get a change of scenery, just to be somewhere different for a while. You can live anywhere for 6 months.
Yeah, true.
You really can.
Yeah.
And then changing your playthings. If you are working on a computer that frustrates you and the computer is driving you nuts every time, it shuts down, it's not fast enough, it's extra slow, the monitor goes out, you can't see, you're squinting, you're way in too close. Okay, you know what? Make the investment. Invest in the playthings that make you happy.
Yeah.
Those are the things, because if you're happy with your laptop, then you're going to be happy doing the work. It just changes. It's that one less thing to make you unhappy.
Yeah.
So change those things. And the last thing is, I always say, change the way you play. So you got your playground, playmates, and playthings. Once those are in order, change the way you play. If you are, like some people are like, you have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning and you got to push through all day. Let me tell you one of the most valuable things that I heard, that I've learned. Pushing through is BS. You do not. I would tell you, don't push through. If you're ramming your head against the wall, stop ramming it.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that anymore. Maybe get a sledgehammer. There are better tools than your head.
Yeah.
Right? If you find that, like, I'm a night owl. So I'm one of those people where I get popping right around noon, and I can go until like midnight, and I'm fine with it. I'll take a break in the middle, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
That's just my best hours. That's where everybody else is like, you have to be up early in the morning. That's not the best way I work. So I don't put all my mental energy in the morning. My mental energy kicks into overdrive in the afternoon, because that's the way that I play best.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to know your way to play best. Everybody can't be quarterback. You might be a better linebacker. Right? You have to play the way you play that makes you successful. Do more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. So much of that is just absolute gold, what you said. But though, I mean, a lot of it, I mean, would be my new favorite now. But one thing you said about the season, or the reason or for a lifetime, I just love that. Just because you're right. So many people, and I've been guilty of it myself, holding on to some friends, and and I mean they're great people, and then but it's like when you're trying to push through, get to another level, and then you don't see
Right.
eye to eye. And I'm like, how come you don't understand this? Like, I don't like.
Well, we put on
what
our
is it?
superhero cape, right? We put on our superhero cape. We go
Yeah,
get the super suits out of the dry cleaners. We put on our superhero cape, and we got to go and we got to save everyone because we're looking for this appreciation from other people. And what really it is that we have to look closer at ourselves and go, you know what? I'm going to educate you as to what I know. I'm going to share as much knowledge as I can, and I'm not going to argue with you about it. And if
mhm,
I have to be apprehensive about calling you ever, then I'm probably going to stop calling you. And I should, as well as your location.
yeah,
You know, I hear people say, well, I've lived here all my life. And
yeah.
so, see, now one of the things that people will find honest about me is that I don't own furniture
Oh, really?
at all. No,
Yeah,
I have tech, I have toiletries, and I have clothing. That's it.
yeah,
And I literally live someplace different every 6 months. My kids are grown. I am single. I live wherever I want. So right now I'm in Orlando for 6 months. I was in New York. I'm probably gonna go to the West Coast and check it out for maybe 6 months.
yeah,
And it costs less than what most people pay in rent.
yeah. That's cool. That's so cool. I love that. I mean, it's not any different from people like jumping in an RV or getting in a boat and going up and down the coast.
Right. Yeah, I
Really?
just don't want an RV. I don't want to stay in the same place. I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I literally, and it changes everything, even in regards to how I spend, because I'm not buying stuff that won't fit in my car,
Yeah.
right? So my financial habits are very different from most people.
Mhm.
You won't see me go and do a multitude of clothing shopping,
Yeah.
um, and I don't own. I haven't paid a utility bill, right? But it
Yeah.
completely changes the game for me. And now with a ticket costs what, $200.
Yeah.
So I could go visit anyone.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's great. And that mindset of it too. It reminded me, excuse me, when I was in the Coast Guard, where you get on the ship and we'd be gone for 6 months. And then we were going to different places, but every week, every other weekend, we would pull into a new city, a new country, as a new port call. And so I thought before I got on the ship, and I thought, well, one, the space we had to pack our clothes was minimal. So I just thought I just brought, just a very small of shirts. About the third or fourth port call, people were making fun of me because I had the same yellow shirt on. Like and I go, I'm in a new port call. I'm in a whole nother country, another state. Nobody's seen me with this yellow shirt. It's okay. And if you see me in it, that's okay. I see you
Right.
24/7. So
Right.
people in Orlando or some other state, like to them, it's a brand new shirt. So I'm okay with it.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where, I kind of did it because I was house hunting.
Yeah.
And then I realized I didn't want to invest in furniture. Furniture is a very expensive investment. It's
Yeah.
not just the investment of putting it in, it's the investment of taking it with.
Mm. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I decided that I didn't need to take it with me.
Hmm.
And so I would stay a place for 6 months, and if I liked it, I'd stay a little longer.
Yeah.
And when I was ready to go, I was like, I'll go look at someplace else.
Well, there you go. Why not? So I love that. So far as like, and I just realized the time I've been so just wrapped up in your story, and I know that time is definitely of the essence for you, and you're extremely busy. So I definitely want to respect that and give it back to you. You kind of touched on some nuggets you gave. Is that normally what you give for entrepreneurs and classes when you give your when you do your speaking engagements as well, or is that different from what you just kind of alluded to earlier?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do for entrepreneurs, I have a couple of things. Is first, if someone wants to be an entrepreneur, I always tell them, call me first before you make the leap. Let's have a real, honest conversation about what are you ready. First of all, are there things that you're missing that you desperately need? Because sometimes there are things they need and they don't recognize it. Um, are there, what skills do you have? All the skills you need. What does your financial outlook really need to look like? Are you mentally and emotionally prepared for this? Because let me tell you, You're
Yeah.
not going to get a check every 2 weeks. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. You're going to go months sometimes and you're going to go, I don't know what's happening. So then you need to really understand cash flow and why it's so critical.
Mhm.
And how do you create those, those pajama dollars? How do you make money while you sleep? And actually one of the things that I'm working on right now for entrepreneurs is I'm creating a full library, a membership library that they can go in and they can literally follow the process that I teach to entrepreneurs in my annual program. I have entrepreneurs that go through an annual program with me because they want to get to $250,000 or $500,000.
Mhm.
And so what they do is they go through this annual program with me. Well, I'm taking all those lessons of all the workbooks and I'm putting them in an online repository that people can just pay for from a membership perspective,
Yeah.
rather than having to come up with, $12,500 for a year.
Oh, okay. Wow. So what would be the best way of somebody to get a hold of you, and what's the website they can check that out?
Actually, I'm super easy because if you just go to Dawna, which is DAWNNA.com,
Mhm.
you can reach me. Yeah, all my
Yeah.
contact information is there. Even if you don't want to email, you can actually just go down and fill in a form.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Super easy. Just,
Super easy.
yeah, just with the acronym KISS, just make it right there. Make it super easy for
Right,
you.
exactly. Super
Yeah.
simple. So yeah, if they just go to Dawna.com, they could just click contact me and they could reach out to me immediately. And I do answer. I'm not one of those people who you reach out to and then like my administrator is going to get back to you and they'll set up something in 5 or 8 weeks from now. Yeah. The funny thing is I had this lady the other night who sent me a text message. She's a client that I'm working with, and she said, it was like 10 o'clock at night, sent me a question. I answered it immediately, and she goes, damn, go to bed. She's like, you always answer like in 20 minutes. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, I'm so busy. I can't talk to you. No, I am as busy as I want to be.
Yeah. I love that. Busy as you want to be. Well, I want to respect that time. I know you said you have some other stuff coming up this afternoon, so respect that and give it back to you. I can't thank you enough for being on the show and sharing your story, your experience, and I appreciate it. So thank you so much.
You're so very welcome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, bye.